You're locked in live, and I'm your host, Algernon Cash. Thank you for locking in for this short live segment here at the end of the day. Typically, I like to talk about some of the top stories that I've been following throughout the day, but tonight I want to talk about something very specific. I want to talk about the state of restaurants, not only here in our local community, but across the country. You know, I posed the question, what's the greatest threat facing restaurants in this current environment? And you don't have to look too far. You can grab any newspaper locally or across the country at this moment, and not a day goes by right now that you don't read about another restaurant that is shutting down. And today, I won't mention the name of the restaurant, but today I had a really good friend of mine who decided that it was time for them to close their restaurant, at least temporarily. We hope that maybe they will get reopened once the winter passes and we get back into the spring and summer and the warmer months, but it's too difficult to know. And I like to remind people that we still have somewhere around 2.5 million service industry employees who are unemployed and have been unemployed since April and continue to try to figure out how to make all this work. And I really anticipate that as we get deeper into the colder months, as we get into winter, the situation for restaurants and of course service industry employees will only grow worse. I think if you look right now in the Northeast, where some states have already started to see a change in weather and it's getting colder and the number of COVID-19 cases are increasing, you're seeing a tremendous amount of pain in our food and beverage community. And I also think that it's important because throughout the summer, I was someone who constantly tried to tell restaurant owners and operators that they may need to pivot. They may need to look at other ways to sell their food, whether that be through delivery or online or whatever creative ideas you can come up with. But I'm at a point now where I don't believe that restaurants can be any more creative than they have been. And the fact of the matter is that just the seasonal environment and the circumstances that we're in with COVID-19 is really knocking at their door. And I think a lot of this is being driven right now for restaurants primarily by weak consumer demand. Restaurants in pretty much every state across the country have somewhat reopened, maybe under reduced capacity or under restrictions that don't allow them to serve but so many people at a time. Some restaurants have voluntarily, especially here in Winston-Salem, have actually put even further restrictions above and beyond what the governor's order is. I still know several restaurants here in my backyard that don't allow you to actually eat inside. You have to eat outdoors, which obviously as it gets colder, that is no longer an option. But as we look at consumers right now, a lot of consumers they're concerned about their income. Perhaps maybe they've lost a job altogether. They see their savings accounts actually starting to shrink at a time where the economy doesn't seem to be getting any better. And so that's causing a lot of customers to just make the decision that they don't want to go out as often. They're eating at home more frequently. They're cooking at home more often. They're not wanting to splurge at restaurants or go to the movies or go to anything that requires them to use their discretionary income. And so we see tremendous weak demand right now for restaurants. And even your favorite restaurant that I'm sure you go out to on Friday and Saturday night, and it may appear to you that they are busy, but they are not generating the revenue that's necessary for them to be able to navigate through these colder months. Also, I think just the fact that we're in a challenging economic environment with such high unemployment, it's really causing consumer confidence to start to decline. And as people become less and less confident about the economy and the future prospects of the economy, the more conservative they will become with their discretionary cash. And so again, I think that's having a tremendous amount of impact on restaurants. And then, I think the final issue, or one of the final issues, is just psychology. I think generally customers are highly fearful about going into restaurants. I mean, we just saw a recent study come out over the weekend that said 58% of all consumers feel uncomfortable with dining inside of a restaurant. And then when you ask consumers if they feel highly uncomfortable, there's another 36% who say they feel highly uncomfortable. Now, this is in spite of the fact that I think a lot of restaurants have implemented new rules and procedures to not only protect their employees, but also to protect customers. And despite all these enhanced sanitation procedures they may be utilizing, or they may be following recommendations from the Department of Health and Human Services, people in general still feel highly uncomfortable with sitting inside of a restaurant. And as I've stated, as we get into the colder months where you're not going to be able to sit outside and you're to some degree forced to sit inside, I really think that's going to be sort of Armageddon for restaurants once we get into January and February and it is really cold outside. So what do we do? What's the response? Well, I've been advocating for a great part of this year that we need more federal stimulus. I think if you go back to the $3 trillion stimulus bill that passed earlier in the year, that the expanded unemployment benefits that it provided would, allowed consumers to still keep going out and spending money at restaurants and spending money at retail stores, and to some degree keeping the economy moving forward. And without those expanded benefits or without stimulus checks, I think people just running out of money and they just can't get out and support this economy. What you need to realize is that 70% of the economy that we live in is literally driven by consumption. So that's the stuff that you go out and buy and you consume and you want, the stuff on Amazon, restaurants, your movie theaters, all types of service providers. 70% of our entire economy is driven by consumption. So when consumers don't feel confident about going out and consuming, then you have the kind of problems that we have going on with restaurants right now. I also think that at some point we're going to have a more serious conversation about a federal bailout in the restaurant community. The Restaurant Act, which has been passed by House Democrats, which is a $120 billion package that would provide grants to restaurants, bars, and food trucks across the country. I think that is a major step in the right direction. Of course, the Senate has not taken up any legislation to try to move that initiative forward. Surprisingly, the White House, Donald Trump has even signaled that he would be open to some type of industry-specific aid for restaurants, but unfortunately has still not been able to get his colleagues, the Senate Republicans, on board with doing any type of stimulus whatsoever. And I also think that there's a number of people that are giving the advice that if we just reopen the economy, so right here in North Carolina, restaurants can only serve people at 50% capacity inside their restaurant. So a lot of people are arguing that if we just reopen the economy more, then that would put restaurants in a position to be able to thrive once again. And I really, really don't believe that. When you go back and you look at the 1918 Spanish flu, we did not shut the economy down during 1918. We actually continue to operate as normal. But you still see the same similar economic declines in 1918 that we're seeing right now. And I think that's really tied, almost invariably tied, to the psychology that people have when there's a viral pandemic. People don't feel comfortable being outside their homes. They certainly don't feel comfortable sitting in closed areas like restaurant dining rooms. And so there's a general psychology that prevents people from wanting to be inside of these places. And I don't think the solution at this point is just saying, the hell with it, let's reopen the economy fully, and some kind of way restaurants and bars are going to automatically rebound. I don't think they will. I don't think that people are going to be comfortable with going back inside of restaurants like normal until we have some kind of a vaccine, which could be next spring or summer when we're able to mass produce a vaccine for this virus. So in the interim, we are desperately in need of another financial stimulus, and at some point, as I mentioned, we may have to have a serious conversation about a federal bailout of the restaurant industry itself. And then we could just do nothing. We could actually try not to support the industry at all. We could just sit on our hands and not do anything at all. But I think the situation, if we do nothing at all, is going to be horrific for a lot of small communities like Winston-Salem, where our downtown and even our local economy is largely dependent on small business owners like restaurant owners and operators who have taken a risk and made an investment to open up their dining establishment. I always like to remind all of you all It's these locally independent owned restaurants. These are the guys and gals that are buying yearbook ads. These are the businesses that support the high school yearbook. These are the businesses that when you want to do a spirit night for whatever club or association you're a member of, these are the businesses that partner with you so that you can do those things. Restaurants and small businesses make up the fabric of every community throughout this country, and we are really at a point where this could be an extinction level event. I'll say that again. This could be an extinction level event for restaurants if we don't do something. If we don't have some type of federal stimulus so that consumers feel more confident about getting out and spending money at restaurants again, or if we don't have some type of bailout that provides some capital to these small business owners that are trying to navigate. 2.5 million service industry employees have not had a job since April. And again, we've got an industry on the verge of wiping out completely. If you haven't done so, go check out the Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. I am the director of that advocacy program. We've got a page available on Facebook. We also have a group called Eat, Drink, Triad that you can join, and you can keep up with a lot of what's happening with the local restaurants and just what's happening in the industry as a whole. Also, as I've been sharing with you, we have rolled out the Algernon Cash YouTube page. So go check out YouTube, subscribe to the page. Lots of great content that we're posting there daily. Of course, I'll be back with you tomorrow evening for another Locked In Live segment. Thank you for joining me tonight. Y'all stay locked in.